I never thought my own brother would come to me years later, demanding 50 grand like I owed him a damn thing. But here I was, staring at my phone, Alex's name glowing on the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. 5 years. 5 years of silence, of pretending we didn't exist to each other. And now, out of nowhere, he wanted money? I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. I should have ignored it. I should have let it go to voicemail and spared myself the bullshit. But against my better judgment, I answered. Hey. My voice came out rougher than I intended. There was a pause on the other end. Then a hey man. He sounded different. Colder. Like whatever warmth we used to have between us had been snuffed out a long time ago. I swallowed, forcing myself to keep my tone even. It's been a while. Yeah. Another pause. Then, straight to the point, I'm getting married. I blinked. For a second, I almost felt relieved. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was his way of reaching out, of putting everything behind us. That's great, man, I said. And I meant it. Really. I'm happy for you. Thanks. His voice was flat. No excitement. No emotion at all. Something felt off. Before I could ask, he added, I want you at the wedding. That should have been a good thing, right? An invitation. A chance to fix things. But then he said, you're not coming empty-handed. My stomach sank. What? A beat of silence. Then, calmly, too calmly, I need 50 grand. I let out a short laugh, expecting him to say he was joking. He didn't. Alex, what the hell are you talking about? I want $50,000. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table, trying to process what I was hearing. For what? It's what you owe me. A cold chill crept down my spine. I don't owe you shit. You stole from me. I clenched my jaw. I didn't need to ask what he meant. We both knew. This is about Emma? My voice was sharp now, disbelief laced into every word. Are you serious? His tone never wavered. You knew she had feelings for you. You let it happen. I felt a sharp, bitter laugh escape before I could stop it. Jesus Christ, Alex. You think this is funny? No, I snapped. I think it's insane. There was a long pause. Then he said, you should have stopped her. My grip on the phone tightened. I did try to stop her. I distanced myself. I ignored her calls. I did everything I could without outright ruining my relationship with you. But she was your fiancée, Alex. You should have seen it. You should have. I cut myself off, shaking my head. No. You know what? I did tell you. And you brushed it off every damn time. A heavy silence settled between us. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. But it carried a weight that pressed down on my chest. I lost everything that night, Tom. I squeezed my eyes shut. You think I don't know that? I muttered. No, I don't think you do. His voice sharpened. You didn't have to stand there while she humiliated me in front of everyone. You didn't have to deal with the looks, the whispers, he exhaled sharply. She was my fiancée, man. I was supposed to spend my life with her. And in one night, it was all gone. My throat felt tight. I could still see it. The way the room had gone deathly silent. The way Alex had just stood there as Emma, drunk and desperate, confessed her love for me in front of everyone. The way he had walked out, his face pale, his hands shaking. And then, just like that, he was gone. I took a slow breath. I get that you're angry. Angry. He let out a humorless laugh. Tom, I'm ruined. I clenched my jaw. That's on her, I said. Not me. She's gone. His voice was hard. And you're the only one left to blame. I let the words sink in. Then I exhaled. I'm not giving you the money. A beat of silence. Then, almost amused, he said, I figured you'd say that. Another pause. I'll give you a few days to reconsider. My stomach turned. What happens if I say no? His voice was eerily calm. Then we're done. I swallowed. Alex. No. You don't get to do this. His tone sharpened. You don't get to act like you didn't play a part in this. You owe me. I gritted my teeth. I don't owe you a damn thing. He sighed. Like I said, you have a few days. Then a click. The line went dead. I just sat there, staring at my phone, my pulse hammering in my ears. Lily walked into the room, a concerned look on her face. What happened? I let out a slow, shaky breath, rubbing a hand down my face. You're not gonna believe this. She listened as I told her everything. By the time I was done, her hands were clenched into fists. He's out of his mind, she said. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah, feels that way. She shook her head. You're not actually considering it, right? No. But still, a small part of me, the part that still saw Alex as the brother I grew up with, wondered if there was a way to fix this. To undo the damage. to bring him back. I just wasn't sure if he even wanted to come back. And that was the part that scared me the most. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the conversation over and over. Alex's voice, flat, emotionless, like he'd already decided I was guilty. Like this wasn't a discussion, just a final transaction before he wiped his hands of me completely. 50 grand. I still couldn't wrap my head around it. Beside me, Lily shifted under the covers, half asleep, then murmured, "You okay?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah." She made a soft sound, something between a sigh and a hum, then turned onto her side, pressing her back against me. But I could tell she didn't believe me. And honestly, I didn't believe me either. By morning, I knew I had to talk to my parents. I didn't tell them anything over the phone, just asked if I could come by. When I arrived, my mom greeted me at the door with a warm smile. But the moment she saw my face, the smile faltered. "Honey, what's wrong?" I hesitated. "We need to talk." Her expression tightened. She stepped aside to let me in. Dad was already at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, flipping through the newspaper like he did every morning. He glanced up as I walked in. "Tom," he said, surprised. "Didn't know you were coming by." I sat down across from him, rubbing a hand over my face. "Yeah." Something came up. Mom poured me a cup of coffee, then sat down next to Dad, concern etched into every line of her face. I took a slow breath. "Alex called me last night." Mom sucked in a breath. Dad set his mug down with a quiet thud. "What did he say?" Mom asked, voice careful. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "He invited me to his wedding." Their expressions flickered with something unreadable. Dad leaned forward slightly. "And?" I clenched my jaw. "And he wants 50 grand from me." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad exhaled through his nose, slow and measured. "For what?" Mom finally managed. I shook my head. "As payment for what happened with Emma." Silence. Then, after a long moment, Dad muttered, "Unbelievable." Mom's voice was softer, almost pleading. He actually said that?" "Yeah." I dragged a hand through my hair. "He thinks I should have stopped her, that I should have done more to prevent the whole mess." Dad let out a sharp breath. "That's not on you, Tom." Mom shook her head, looking down at the table. I frowned. "What?" She hesitated. Then, quietly, "There's something you don't know." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. "What do you mean?" She exchanged a glance with Dad. Then, finally, she said, "He didn't just disappear after that night, Tom." I frowned. "Yeah, I know. He cut us all off." Dad sighed. "No. I mean, he left the country." The words took a second to register. I blinked. "Wait. What?" Mom folded her hands together, staring down at them. "He moved to Spain. Lived there for almost 3 years." I just stared at them. "He moved?" My voice came out hollow. "You never told me that." "We didn't know how to tell you," Mom admitted. "And honestly, we barely heard from him ourselves." I shook my head, still trying to process. "Jesus." Dad leaned back in his chair. "It gets worse." I exhaled sharply. "Of course it does." "He got married," Dad said. "Her name was Sophia. And from what little he told us, she was a lot like Emma." That hit me like a punch to the gut. Mom nodded. "It didn't last. She left him. Took a lot of his money, too." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Jesus Christ." Dad sighed. "And now he's back. Broke, bitter, and looking for someone to blame." The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. I swallowed hard. "So this isn't even about Emma anymore." Mom's eyes were sad. "I don't think it ever really was." I sat back, rubbing my temples. Alex wasn't just angry about what happened 5 years ago. He had built his entire life around his resentment. Every bad thing that had happened since. He had tied it all back to me. And now, he wanted me to pay for it. Literally. I let out a slow breath. "I need to talk to him." Mom looked worried. "Tom, I'm not giving him the money," I said quickly. I need to see if there's anything left to save here." She hesitated, then nodded. Dad sighed. "Be careful, son." "I will." I pulled out my phone and dialed Alex's number. It rang, and rang, and rang, straight to voicemail. I tried again later that afternoon. Same result. By the third time, I was pissed. I left a message. "You gave me a damn deadline, man. At least have the decency to pick up the phone." No response. Then, late that night, I got a text. "Alex, meet me at Murphy's tomorrow. 6 p.m. Murphy's. The old bar we used to go to in college." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Me, fine." When I walked into the bar the next evening, he was already there, a drink in hand, eyes fixed on the counter. He looked rough, not just tired, hollow, like a man who had spent the last 5 years being eaten alive from the inside. I sat down next to him. Hey. He didn't look at me, just took another sip of his drink. You actually came, he muttered. I signaled the bartender for a beer. Yeah, figured we should talk. He let out a short laugh. Talk. Right. I studied him. Are you okay? That got a reaction. He shot me a sharp look. Do I look okay? Fair enough. Silence stretched between us. I exhaled. Look, man, I'm not giving you the money. His jaw clenched. You didn't even think about it. I did think about it, I said, and I realized it's bullshit. His fingers tightened around his glass. Tom. No, I cut him off. This isn't my fault. You're pissed, I get it. You have every right to be. But this isn't how you fix it. His hands curled into fists. You think this is just about money? Isn't it? He let out a humorless laugh. You really don't get it. I exhaled slowly. Then explain it to me. He turned to face me fully for the first time. His eyes were bloodshot. Tired. But there was something else, too. Something dangerous. You ruined my life, Tom. I stared at him, something cold settling in my chest. You let it happen, he said. You stood there and let her make a fool out of me. I clenched my jaw. I tried to warn you. Then why did she pick you? That one hit deep. Because I had no answer. He stared at me for a long time. Then, quietly, I'll never forgive you. I felt something crack inside me. I nodded slowly. I know. Then he stood up and walked out. And I just sat there, staring at my untouched beer, feeling something that tasted a lot like grief. I didn't reach out to Alex after that night. And he sure as hell didn't reach out to me. Maybe that was it. Maybe we had finally hit the point of no return. But even after everything, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. Like I was standing in the middle of a wreckage, knowing there was one more explosion waiting to happen. I just didn't know when. Or how. Then, 2 weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. Unknown, I have something you should see. I frowned. Me, who is this? Unknown, meet me at the mill. 9 p.m. It's about Alex. The mill. An old diner we used to go to as kids. A weird sense of unease settled in my stomach. I hesitated, then texted back. If you have something to say it now. No response. Lily glanced at me from across the room. What's wrong? I hesitated. I don't know yet. I showed her the texts. She frowned. You think it's real? I have no idea. She hesitated, then asked, Are you gonna go? I exhaled. I think I have to. The diner was mostly empty when I walked in. Just a few late-night stragglers, the hum of a distant radio playing old rock songs. And then I saw her. Emma. My stomach clenched. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. Like life had chewed her up and spit her back out. She gave me a small, almost nervous smile. Hey, Tom. I sat down across from her, my body rigid. What the hell is this? She sighed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see. Yeah, I said flatly. You are. She flinched, but didn't argue. There was a long silence. Then, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn notebook. She slid it across the table. Read it. I hesitated, then picked it up. I flipped it open. And then my stomach dropped. Page after page of handwriting. My name. Alex's name. And then, written in bold, deliberate letters. I have to make sure Alex never forgives him. My fingers curled around the edge of the notebook. I flipped through more pages. Alex will never hate me. But if I play this right, he'll hate Tom forever. He's already doubting him. I just need to push him a little more. My pulse pounded in my ears. I looked up at her, my voice dangerously low. What is this? Emma swallowed hard. My journal. I stared at her. Why are you showing me this? She let out a slow breath. Because I need to fix what I broke. I shook my head, still trying to process what I was reading. You planned this? You actually. I cut myself off, laughing bitterly. Jesus, Emma. I was jealous, Tom, she admitted. I wanted you. And when I realized I couldn't have you, she swallowed. I wanted to make sure no one else did either. I felt sick. You ruined him, I said. My voice cracked. You ruined us. I know. Her eyes were wet now. And I'm sorry. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. You don't get to be sorry. She flinched, but didn't look away. I ran a hand through my hair. My brain was still catching up, still trying to make sense of what I was holding. But why now? I asked finally. Why give this to me now? She hesitated. Because Alex, he's not okay, Tom. I stared at her. He's drinking a lot. He's angry all the time. He talks about you like you're some kind of enemy. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I noticed. She shook her head. No, you don't get it. He's not just angry at you. He's angry at everything. He's spiraling. I felt my jaw tighten. She exhaled. I know he asked you for money. My stomach clenched. Did he tell you that? She shook her head. No, but it's what he does, Tom. He finds something or someone to pin all his problems on, and then he convinces himself that fixing that one thing will solve everything. I didn't say anything. She sighed. I thought you should know. I stared at the notebook. The pages that spelled out, in her own words, how she had manipulated everything. Then I met her gaze. So what do you want me to do with this? She bit her lip. I don't know. She shook her head. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. But maybe if you show him this, he'll see the truth. I exhaled slowly. I wasn't sure if I believed that. But I did know one thing. I had to try. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at Emma's journal. The words on the pages blurred together, but my mind kept circling back to one line. I have to make sure Alex never forgives him. She had planned it. All of it. The distance between us, the resentment, the hatred, she had designed it. And Alex had fallen for it completely. I ran a hand down my face, exhaling shakily. Lily's voice played in my head. If you give in to this, he's never going to stop. I didn't want to give in. But I also didn't want to lose my brother forever. I picked up my phone and dialed his number. For a second, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, what do you want? His voice was flat. Tired. I gripped the steering wheel. We need to talk. He let out a dry laugh. We did talk. I have something to show you. Silence. Then cautiously, what is it? I hesitated. Not over the phone. Another pause. Then, finally, fine. My place. Tomorrow. The line went dead. I showed up at his apartment the next evening, gripping Emma's journal so tightly my fingers ached. Alex opened the door, looking just as hollow as he had at the bar. Come in, he muttered. I stepped inside. The place was neat, but there was an emptiness to it. Like no one really lived here. I swallowed. You doing okay? He gave me a dry look. You didn't come here to ask about my well-being. I sighed, then handed him the notebook. Read this. He frowned, glancing down. What is it? Emma's journal. He froze. I didn't say anything. Just watched as he flipped it open. At first, his expression was blank. Then his brows furrowed. His grip on the notebook tightened. Then, slowly, his face drained of color. His breathing grew uneven. And then he slammed the journal shut. For a long moment, he just stood there, gripping the edges like he wanted to rip it in half. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. She swallowed. She planned this. Yeah. His jaw clenched. She wanted me to hate you. His voice was shaking now. She made me hate you. I didn't say anything. He looked up at me, something cracking in his expression. And I fell for it. There was something almost desperate in his voice now. Like he was trying to piece together everything he had believed for the past 5 years and realizing it was all a lie. I exhaled. Yeah, you did. His eyes were wet now. But not with anger. With something closer to grief. He let out a sharp breath and turned away, pressing the heels of his hands against his eyes. Jesus Christ. I didn't say anything. Just let him sit with it. After a long silence, he spoke again. I wasted so much time. His voice was raw. I swallowed. Yeah. Another pause. Then, softly, I don't know how to fix this. I let out a slow breath. Neither do I. He turned to face me, eyes red-rimmed. Do you want to fix this? I hesitated. Then, yeah. His breath hitched. And for the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in a long, long time. Hope. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't instant. But it was a start. And for now, that was enough. We didn't fix things overnight. I didn't expect us to. But that night at Alex's apartment, something shifted. The years of silence, the anger, the resentment, it didn't disappear, but it cracked. And through that crack, for the first time in 5 years, I saw a glimpse of my brother again. I left him with the journal, told him to take his time, to sit with it. He just nodded, still looking shaken, and shut the door behind me. I wasn't sure if he'd ever call, if this was really the start of something better, or just another false hope. For a while, I didn't hear from him at all. Then, one afternoon, I got a text. Alex, you free for a drink? I stared at my phone for a long time before responding. Me. Yeah. We met at Murphy's again. The same bar where he'd told me he'd never forgive me. He was already there when I walked in, a beer in front of him. But this time, when he saw me, he didn't just glare or look through me like I was a stranger. This time, he gave me a small, tired nod. I sat down. Hey, he said. Then, after a beat, thanks for coming. That was new. The bartender came over, and I ordered a drink. We sat in silence for a moment, neither of us sure where to start. Finally, he exhaled. So, Emma reached out to me. I raised an eyebrow. Seriously. He nodded. She wanted to apologize. Again. He let out a short, humorless laugh. I told her to go to hell. I snorted. Probably the right call. He swirled his drink in his hand. You think she really regrets it? I thought about it. About the way she looked at me in that diner. Guilt all over her face. I think she regrets what she lost, I said honestly. But I don't think she understands what she actually did. Alex hummed, taking another sip of his beer. Yeah, that sounds about right. More silence. But this time, it wasn't so heavy. Eventually, he let out a slow breath. I'm sorry. I blinked. Of all the things I expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. He didn't look at me, just stared down at his drink. For blaming you. For shutting you out. He swallowed. For making you the villain in my head. It was easier than accepting that I got played. I didn't say anything right away. Just let his words settle. Then, finally, I nodded. I get it. His mouth twitched like he was expecting me to yell at him, to tell him how much he hurt me. And yeah, part of me wanted to. But mostly, I just felt tired. I was angry at you for a long time, I admit it. I hated you for what you said. For making me feel like I had to choose between my own life and fixing yours. I exhaled sharply. But I never wanted to lose you, man. He swallowed hard. Me neither. A pause. Then, hesitantly, he asked, can we fix this? I let out a breath. I don't know, I said honestly. But we can try. His shoulders relaxed just slightly. Yeah. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we weren't completely broken. Maybe we never had been. Maybe we just needed to find our way back.